Well, it's a happy Devil's Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 51, titled Backflip. Yeah, we're all doing backflips because we are bored. I am your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks editor-in-chief, Nick Volano, streaming live on the Let's Go Devils Podcast Network, all powered by Nova Product Design from Primetime Radio, and now simulcasting on the Primetime Radio Network. Oh, we're all over the place. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitch, Twitter, Periscope. You know where to find us. Go to Google, the Google machine, and type Let's Go Devils Podcast, and you'll find us. And also, you'll find us after the show on wherever you download your podcasts. It could be iTunes, it could be Google Podcasts, or even iTunes anywhere. No, it's Apple Podcasts, whatever. They always keep on changing. Nick, I got to tell you something, and I got to get something off my chest, and I know I'm just monopolizing your time right now on this fine evening, but I was looking at our demographics for the Let's Go Devils podcast, and it definitely has changed in the last 3 weeks because behaviors have changed. We are now social distancing. A lot of us are not going to work because we're supposed to do our part and stay home, which is great because that's what we're supposed to be doing. But, it used to be people going into the city, New York City, listening to the podcast on a Monday. Now it's all kind of spread out. But do you know who takes up 13% of our demographics now with all these changes? Close, but keep on guessing.
Europeans?
I'll give you a clue. It's in the States. What state is leading the charge at 13%? It's not a trick question. I'll give you one more guess.
Is it New Jersey?
No, New Jersey actually leads. It's Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh, North Carolina, 13% of our downloads is coming from Raleigh, North Carolina, which tells me that our transplants from New Jersey, Devils fans, down in Raleigh, have nothing better to do with their time but to listen to us. So welcome, North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. I hope you're safe. I love North Carolina. Thank you for joining this fine program. Okay, Nick, I'm going to turn it over to you because I got a lot of work to do behind the scenes. Didn't mean to monopolize your time, but how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing well. I bet you a lot of that had to do with Greg Wyshynski being on the podcast because, he's down with the storm surge. And you know that every national media member who's down with the storm surge, they're like through the roof. They made T-shirts because of the bunch of jerks thing. They made a bunch of money because of the bunch of jerks thing. So, I mean, it's obvious that when there is a person on your side, I mean, us as Devils fans, we can kind of relate this too. Whenever we get national media members to get on our side, it kind of like back us even a little bit or talk about us in a positive light. We're like, that one has our back. But there's times where when you feel like you're the small market city and you're the small market crowd, that you're only there to be a punching bag or to, for the Toronto Maple Leafs to laugh at you. So, I feel like we share in that thought process with the Carolina Hurricanes. And the Carolina Hurricanes are I felt like they used to be bigger rivals than they are now. Like, I really hated them in the mid-2000s. And then when Eric Stahl was a name, Eric Stahl was a name that wasn't allowed to be said in my house. But now I feel like it's eased. I feel like the hate isn't there between the two franchises. And it's because, after that 2006 year when they won it all, they fell off pretty miraculously. They had a couple decent seasons with Cam Ward there, but they were not the powerhouse. And then once they started coming on the up and up, we just weren't We weren't the same team that we used to be. So I feel like there is a shared interest now. We can relate.
Yeah, definitely. And I like North Carolina. I love Tampa. When I visited you in Tampa, right before the social distancing, remember back in the day when we used to high five each other, pat each other on the back. Now we just stay away from each other. Remember we were having those wingies at that bar nearby when we met up in Tampa.
Yeah, that was the last time I was at a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, I was really looking forward to broadcasting from Thunder Alley. Coincidentally near the Corona tent, but that was a coincidence. And I was looking forward to that, and all things stopped. But right now, we're doing our thing. We're doing our thing, and I know Nico Hischier's doing his thing. He's doing backflips. Did you see that? Like, I'm thinking to myself when I'm watching that video, I'm like, dude, you better not hurt yourself. I mean, I don't want you to be an injury casualty during this time. Don't make it worse on us.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to talk to you about that today too. Just kind of, I mean, I always worry about that. Like when I see these athletes doing these weird CrossFit-y workouts and these weird flips and these, like I always think you're going to tear an ACL or tore an Achilles or something like that. And with the coronavirus and with people having to stay home, people are having to get creative with their workouts. And for the Let's Go Devils podcast fans, I'm going to throw this in the chat in case you haven't seen it yet. I just posted a link to the Devils Twitter showing Nico Hischier doing those backflips and those weird push-up weird things. Like it's like some Orange Theory stuff. And like, Sam, I can't talk much. I stay fat. So, it's not a big deal for me, but
you know what? I probably gained just a little bit of weight over the last few weeks. I mean, I think it's kind of a balance because I thought, well, I'm not eating fast food, but I'm just sitting there at home. I've been doing a lot of podcasts. Yeah. I've been doing some stuff, but I am isolated in one particular location. My Fitbit, I don't even have to wear my Fitbit because I know how many steps I took. 5 all day. Just 5, right? I'm not burning calories, but I'm definitely gaining weight. Your hair is getting longer. You can't go to the barber, right? And, I feel like eventually I'm going to be Grizzly Adams on the Let's Go Devils podcast. No one's going to recognize me. No one's going to recognize you. And then I can't wait to see everybody when this whole thing's over because I know Shorts Guy and Beer Baron's like, we're going to throw one hell of a party at PJ Ryan's outside the Prudential Center. I was like, yeah, but can I fit through the door? I'm that fat.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point where it's not looking good for the end of the season. So it looks like that PJ Ryan's party is probably going to be a Devils end of season party. Maybe we'll give out some Devils awards. Maybe we'll give out some prizes, Devils fans. Who knows? The world is our oyster, Sam. But when it comes to just seeing what the Devils have been doing, the Devils have been trying to. The past couple of days, they've been changing their, I guess, their approach to how they're going to do content. They're trying to get a little bit more inside with the Devils, things like that, because they're out of games. They were doing the simulation of the games and all the on NHL 20. You play the video games to see how they would end up, and the Devils won. I think everyone. I got to look back and see, but they had to have juiced the numbers there because there's no way, even in a video game, that team would be scoring like they did. Like Pavel Zacha was a man amongst boys. I think he scored 2 or 3 goals a game. And it was literally video game numbers. And you were joking last week that Corey Schneider had the 98 save win against the Calgary Flames. So it's like, it was all fun and games. It was tongue in cheek, and it was a little like, they were celebrating the wins and all the goals. And Amanda Steiner was doing interviews, but now they're out of content. So now, we got Travis Zajac, the Tiger King, which is awkward to me. I don't know that I mean, obviously
you know what? I got to say something about Travis Zajac. I didn't know that he talked. He's been talking all, but not to interrupt, I'm going to pull through the now Nova Product Designs. We're beaming in my iPad. This is the video of Nico Hischier doing like backflips. Uh-oh. I don't know if it's working. What the heck is this? Oh, it's skip ad. It's they got to make some money. It's like, what are you doing, Nico? What are you doing? You're giving me a heart attack. I mean, does his contract insure this? I don't know. It's like,
I mean, I'm sure it insures it, but I mean, do you really care? I don't care. I don't personally care about Josh Harris's money getting wasted. I personally care about our star center doing backflips on the top of a roof. Like, what if he, first of all, if you're going to do that, why are you wearing a hat? You know that hat's not going to last. And second of all, what are you doing? You're on the roof of a mountain. First of all, is he back in Switzerland? I think he right? They sent everybody home. He is,
yeah.
And that looks like a Swiss mountain in the background. And what if he trips on a shoelace and he falls off a roof? Sam, we've heard crazier things. You're a Mets fan. You've heard of crazier injuries.
Oh, I know. I mean, the next thing I want to hear, I don't want to hear, is Nico Hischier, blew out his knee because there was a wild boar, in the mountain somewhere, and he tripped over it.
Yeah.
I mean, something happens. It happens.
I mean, I feel like Nico Hischier could fight a bear, but I just don't want him to.
Yeah, I know. And also, going back to my iPad, I've been checking out Pucks and Pitchforks blog, pucksandpitchforks.com. And, Vinny Parisi, Dave Brown, Mike Lucci, even you, and also Steve Palumbo. Been writing some great articles during this time because you guys are churning out content, and I'm running out of content to talk about on my little micro podcast or whatever. So I appreciate it because I'm probably going to be just starting to read your articles out to people. Like, I'll be the storyteller of the Pucks and Pitchforks blog since I haven't written one damn article, even though I promised you 2 years ago that I would at least get one in. At least I could just read the articles and promote it because that's what I do.
Hey, we'll get there, Sam. We'll get there. We got a new writer starting this week. His name's Owen, so look for some stuff from him. But Steve, you mentioned Steve. We got Steve doing some Corona stuff, and he's starting a new series looking back at the career of a couple players. And the other day, he wrote about Valery Zelepukin, which is my first ever favorite player, and the only reason why he was my favorite player. Yeah, the only reason why he was my favorite player is because the first Devils game that I went to personally, I went to with my dad, and my aunt Diane bought me the tickets, and my dad took me there, and he brought his binoculars, which I never knew why he had these binoculars because my dad never went anywhere, and we finally had a reason to use these binoculars, and the first person I see is this weird name Zelepukin. And just like that, he became my favorite. And obviously, he eventually got traded for Jason Arnott. And, you saw how and wild, you forget these things, Sam, but the 90s Devils had just the most wild stories that would be front page of, ESPN if it happened today and would make Twitter go wild. But Valery Zelepukin's career fell off because his name's escaping me, but basically in practice, he got high-sticked in practice, and it ruined his eye. And he had this almost career-threatening eye injury, and he came back, but he was never the same guy. So imagine Twitter erupting, hockey Twitter erupting, when the New Jersey Devils, who were in the midst of being championship quality, took out one of their best young players in practice.
Those are the good old days, and I think it was Paul Coffey. I read an article about Paul Coffey that there's one element missing in the NHL right now, and that's hitting. And I thought about it, and it's wow, any of us that grew up in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s watching the NHL, I mean, do you remember the days of not line brawls, just full-out bench-clearing brawls. Remember Devils Rangers in the playoffs, Game 6 at Brendan Byrne Arena? The first playoff match between the two rivals? And Scott Stevens, like, in the bench punching a New York Ranger? I mean, come on. I mean, not
it
that
was
we
bedlam.
should really, but I'm just saying that life is so different now. And, it's just, there's a lot of things you can get away with. You could get away with 25 years ago yelling in the stands that you can't even get away with right now. It's just amazing. It just amazes me how old I am. But while I'm babbling, I think that you should talk to the Facebook Live and social media as I get our next hockey writer guest, Kyle McKenna.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interview that we've been working on for a couple of months now. Me and Kyle have been talking, and with the coronavirus thing, and a couple other reasons why we had some issues getting him on. It was mostly me. It was 100% me. He's been excited to come on and talk Devils hockey. So we're gonna get the very talented. He writes for Elite Sports New York. Has a couple articles out in the past week or two. So he knows his stuff, and that's why I wanted to get him on. But I just wanted to pimp out the Pucks and Pitchforks poll that's been going on. We took the 32 most hated New Jersey Devils opponents, and on the Twitter account at Pitchfork Puck, we've ranked them. The first round is over. We got the names that have moved on include Sean Avery, Mark Messier, Patrick Waugh, Eric Stahl. Speaking of that Hurricanes teams that have broken our hearts, Ilya Kovalchuk moved on to the next round. Some of the players that have broken Devils fans' hearts in one way or another. So head to the Pucks and Pitchforks Twitter account because you got to vote on these. I'm going to do something pretty cool. I'm trying to work out the kinks of exactly what I'm going to do, but I'm going to get some really cool – I'm going to put a cool article idea in play when it comes to these most hated players, and it's going to be a really enjoyable read. So I feel like I'm patting myself on the back now. So I don't want to do that, but it's going to be a really fun little project that we're working on. And right now, Mark Messier is just doing a number on Patrick Waugh, and that's not what I expected. Y'all really still hate. There's still a lot of hate for Messier here. More hate for Messier than for Waugh. And I didn't expect that, Sam.
Well, first off, Waugh apologized to the greatest goaltender of all time, Martin Brodeur, about his behavior in Japan during the Olympics, and he basically said, "Don't take it personal, Marty. I was just that competitive and jealous of you. That's all." And then, all right, I can see that. Mark Messier, I lived through that '94 like most Devils fans. Rangers fans, still keep their VCRs so they can watch their Stanley Cup video, VHS, because that was the technology back then. And they're still talking about it. And to me, the spring of '94, nevermore, what have you done for me lately? Anyway, so, but our next guest is on the Nova Product Design Hotline. He was one of our first guests on the Let's Go Devils podcast back in season 1, or even like the Minus World, season -2, because he was there from the beginning, and it's great to see his name pop up as one of our guests. He's a great hockey writer. I've met him at our events at PJ Ryan's, and please welcome Kyle McKenna. Kyle, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, man?
Guys, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this. And I think before we get started, I do have to give kudos to you both and just everyone that was, involved with the podcast. As Sam said, I think I was one of your first guests. I don't know if it was 2017 or 2018. And, it takes a lot to do these things consistently, right? Like it's easy to say I'm going to do a podcast and to do it once or twice every week. I think just speaks volumes to, the whole podcast's dedication. So I'm really happy for you guys and proud of what you've done. So I'm honored to be back on. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, Kyle.
Well, Kyle, you've done the number one thing that makes you a friend of the podcast, and you've said nice things about me and Sam. So I got to commend you for knowing how to become a friend of the podcast. So it's a good start, Kyle. But we're going to switch gears to talk about Devils. I mean, we were talking about – I told you I was going to ask you this at the end of the interview, but we already started talking about it. So we'll just go right into it. We've been talking about on the Pucks and Pitchforks Twitter account the most hated Devils rival of all time. Do you have one that sticks out in your mind personally?
And we're talking about players now, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I have three off the bat. I would have to go with Sean Avery as my number one. I normally don't say this publicly about NHL players, but I just thought he was beyond disrespectful towards the game, towards his teammates, his opponents. So he is, without a doubt, number one. Ty Domi would be number two. And I think number three would be Hatcher from the Stars and the Flyers. I felt like back in the day, Hatcher was a big enemy, especially you guys, I think, were mentioning before about the 1990s and early 2000s and how the game was a little more exciting. I guess we'll say that. And I think Hatcher was right in the mix of things back in the day when we were raising Stanley Cups. But I'm interested to see what you guys have to say as well.
I'm going to chime in here. Kyle, when you said Sean Avery's name, I just want to let you know that back in, I think, 2008, when he was a Dallas Star, and that was after all that,
right,
the Avery rule and all that, he came back to Prudential Center. I am the only fan in the history of the NHL that would dress in my Martin Brodeur goalie gear behind the Dallas bench, and I've got proof, and I've got videos, I've got pictures. I literally scared Sean Avery. He was afraid of me, and that is a badge of honor. Yeah, if you want to talk to my PR guy, maybe we could schedule an interview and you could write me up. But I just wanted to concur with you that I don't like Sean Avery that much, and maybe I should dig up those old photos and videos. And I also held up an Elle magazine or a Vogue magazine there, and I also caught him doing some very unethical things on the bench. Anyway, let you two talk.
No, mine's probably more of recency bias. I hate Sean Avery too, and he's one player that I hated even after he left the Devils' rival. Like, I hated him in Dallas. I hated him the rest of his career. But the one that's sticking out of my mind besides Avery is Brad Marchand, just because of when he just threw a Macho Man elbow at Marcus Johansson and knocked him out for the entire season, basically, and just showed no remorse for it, and kind of blamed everybody else, and people forget, like, that game was the Devils were pushing during that game, and getting a power play at that time would have been huge, and the refs just missed the power play and just let them play, and then it was. And then when Damon Severson, I know it ended up being an empty net goal for the Bruins, but when Damon Severson just laid the wood on Brad Marchand a couple months later when they finally played again, it warmed my heart a little bit. But let's talk about the Devils right now. The Devils right now they're in flux, I guess you could say. I mean, obviously the season's kind of just up in the air, and obviously the world is up in the air. And when the grand scheme of things, I can't say this enough, that the hockey doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but this is a hockey podcast, so let's talk about hockey things. Right now, there's talk that it's a possibility that the season could just get outright canceled. And that kind of puts a damper on a lot of the Devils draft in general would be kind of a question mark. because they have three conditional picks in this draft, two in the first round, and then they have that Carolina pick, which I think if they start the playoffs again, they'll probably get, because Sammy Vatanen just needs to play 70% of the Hurricanes playoff games. So if they didn't expand the playoffs, he'd be in. But Kyle, how much would it hurt if the Devils end up losing both the Carolina pick and that Vancouver pick? Because, I mean, if nobody's making the playoffs, the Canucks aren't either.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how this all works, right? I'm sure you guys have talked about this before on podcasts, but I mean, I don't have an answer for you. I don't know if the NHL does either. If the Devils were expecting 3 first-round picks potentially, they gave up value for something that's up in the air right now, something that doesn't exist. So I would have to think that the league would favor the team that has the conditional picks, considering that they were the first suitors that made their move, right? They gave up something that exists, if that makes sense. So I would hope and I would imagine that by draft time, whenever that happens, that this would still go in favor of the New Jersey Devils in some way, shape, or form, whether it's this year or maybe the year after. I mean, like I said, when you make that deal, both sides didn't know what was going to happen, that we're going to go through this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. Let's hope it's once in a lifetime. But again, if you gave up something that already existed and that was already proven, I would think those conditional picks have to go, in favor of the team that gave up a player.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was the Blake Coleman trade that brought that Vancouver pick here, and we were all celebrating because at the time Vancouver was higher in the standings. But, I mean, I think it really hurts, Kyle. I think it hurts if you're going to go from getting 3 first-round picks in this year to now 2, and next year's draft is quite farther off as far as talent so far. I mean, obviously, the cream builds to the top, but I don't know. I feel like this draft might be one of the more important drafts in Devils history, and I feel like that's not hyperbole at this point, just because of where the Devils are and what's at stake. Yeah,
I agree with you. I think this, out of all the drafts ever since, let's date back till 2010, over the last decade, I think this would have been the most important. I'm right there with you. As much as we all love, Jack Hughes and, a couple other guys, I just feel like having that, there's better odds, right? When you have more draft picks and when you have more early draft picks, the odds are just on your side to land something. You go back, you look at history, you look at teams like the Ducks when they had Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf. Those guys were both drafted in the first round, late in the first round. Look what they turned out to be. So if the Devils, you have the odds of 3 first-round draft picks in a good draft class, chances are one of those guys is going to be a stud, and arguably, who knows, maybe he turns out better than Jack Hughes. Or maybe that defenseman turns out better than what Ty Smith can be, or Kevin Ball, and so on. So it would be disappointing if the draft doesn't go in the Devils' favor, but if it does, I think 3 years from now, when we're on this podcast again and we're talking, and we're going to look back and say, where did it all turn around for the New Jersey Devils? Let's say it was a 2020 draft in the first round.
So you brought up Ty Smith. So that's what we call a professional transition. So we're going to move on to our next question about, Ty Smith just named WHL's top line defenseman. I guess it's kind of like their all-pro team kind of thing. But they named him basically one of the 2 best defensemen in the league this season. Smith was supposed to, from all projections, he was going to make the league this year. And then he didn't. He had a bad preseason, and they sent him back to the WHL. What's your projection now? Do you have an updated projection for Ty Smith?
He's got to be on the roster next year. I don't care if he's a bad preseason or not, or if he takes a stick the wrong way or doesn't know how to tie his skates. He has to be on the team, and he has to see minutes. You look at this guy's pedigree, and I think it speaks volumes, his background at the World Junior level and playing junior hockey in Canada. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but in my opinion, I think when guys go through 2 tours of World Junior, I just think those guys are tested at the highest stakes in hockey, prior to joining an NHL team. And I think that goes a long way. Prime example right now, I know Jack Hughes is is young, and I don't mean to pick on him, but it's pretty obvious he just didn't have the same exposures as other players did because they had better competition, no offense, and guys that were getting drafted left and right in the NHL. And I just feel like Ty Smith is tested. He's been put in a position to lead, in a good hockey league, right, in WHL. So I think you have to give him exposure, and I'm interested to see what both of you guys have to say about this. I always like to make a comparison with NHL defensemen to NFL quarterbacks. Are you guys NFL fans?
Yeah.
I love the NFL.
Firm believer, and if you draft that NFL quarterback in the first round, the chances are it's going to take him 4 or 5 years to develop into the quarterback he's going to be. A year 4 or 5, this guy either sucks or he's good. So I have the same feeling about NHL defensemen, where they're exposed more once you put them in the NHL as a defenseman. They're not like the forwards. Wingers can get away with so much more. They make so many mistakes, but we just don't realize it. Where the D-men, they make a mistake, it's like, oh my God, what is this guy doing? So it takes them 4 or 5 years, and then it's like, holy cow, Victor Hedman, we thought he was a bust, is a Norris Trophy winner. You look at the Drew Dowdys, even PK Subban, I think it was his 4th or 5th year, he wins a Norris Trophy. So I think you play this guy from day one, you give him as many minutes, let him make as many mistakes as possible. And again, like I said, we'll be on this podcast again 3 or 4 years from now, and we'll just look back on this and be like, look, it started in the draft. It started with Ty Smith. So get him in the lineup. I don't care how bad he is, play him.
Well, I agree with you, Kyle. That's a great analogy, comparison with NFL quarterbacks. I've always felt the same way with the defense. If you remember Scott Niedermayer coming up, being drafted, and the mentoring that the defense did for him, and they nurtured him. It wasn't until really 94, really 95, where he broke out, and when he scored that goal against the Detroit Red Wings on that comeback, end to end, I believe it was game 2. That's when Scott Niedermayer arrived, in my opinion. Yes, we all knew he was going to be great back then, the Scott and Scott tandem, Stevens and Niedermayer. But, again, we have to be patient. Victor Hedman's another guy that, Tampa Bay Lightning nurtured, and, he's a top tier defenseman in the league.
Yeah, I guess my biggest thing right now, too, is I don't want to see Ty Smith in the American Hockey League for more than 5 games in his career. I don't want to see him get lost down there. I don't want to see him end up like a Reed Boucher or someone like that. Or I'm even concerned about Joey Anderson, too, about just having him spend too much time in the American Hockey League. I think guys can get lost in the minors. So I think it's important for a guy like Ty Smith to get a shot in the NHL and to stay there, regardless.
Yeah, I don't understand these projections. I was reading a top prospects list, and obviously Ty Smith is on there, and I think he was 17. And this is in the entire NHL, obviously. Despite him being the 17th ranked prospect and them touting how good he's looked and how he's gotten better defensively and he's worked on all the things that he's had trouble with, they still project him to go to the AHL. And I'm like, what are you watching? First of all, A, what are you watching from him? And B, what are you watching from this Devils defense that you think there's going to be 7 defensemen better than him that's going to be on the team next year?
Yeah, that's a great point too, Nick. Who do the Devils really have that's going to be better and that you want to actually develop, right, and hold on to? So I think that's another thing to take in consideration is this is a prime opportunity for the Devils and Ty Smith to really just find lightning in a bottle here and hit it off, right?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that was it the right decision to send Ty Smith down to back to juniors this year? Well, I don't know if I wanted my young player on this wild ride, we'll say, that was this New Jersey Devils season. So sure, we'll say that it was the right decision just because it was something that we were just, we saw what happened to Hughes. We saw what happened to Jesper Boquist. I didn't want that to happen to Ty Smith, him getting sat 30 games at a time and not getting ice time. That sounds like what they would have done. It sounds like Mirko Mueller was going to play ahead of him.
GM gets fired. I mean, the whole thing was a mess, right? So
it
worked out from now.
Literally, we are the hot mess express. That is what the Devils are. But I do want to, we already brought up, obviously, the name of the podcast title tonight is Backflip, based on the Nico Hischier video. First of all, did you have a little bit of a heart attack when you see Nico Hischier making those kinds of workout moves?
You know what? Even though I am a fellow Mets fan, for Sam here, I actually don't. I actually trust Nico Hischier a lot, and I don't. It's almost like Nico Hischier could walk on a rope with no strings attached to him across the mountain, and I'm kind of not fazed by it because he's just so calm and composed and mature that it didn't faze me somehow. I don't know. If it was anyone else, yeah, probably I'd be like, oh my gosh, really? This is a disaster waiting to happen. But it's almost like Nico Hischier is that guy when you're in school, right? You're growing up, and he was almost like a little devil child, but he never got in trouble. He never got detention, but he was always in the mix because he's so likable for some reason. No matter what he does, like, you just trust him, if that makes sense. So I think he's just captured over a lot of our hearts where he can walk on water in New Jersey, for all I know.
Yeah, I mean, hit that back up pretty cleanly. Looks like he landed flat-footed, so it's clearly something he's done before. I don't know how the TikTok works. The Devils have been doing these TikToks with Miles Wood and Connor Carrick and now Nico. So it's almost like a one-up competition. Sam, I hadn't think of that until I just said it right now. But, it all started with Connor Carrick and his wife doing the TikTok, and then Miles Wood did the TikTok the other day. And now Nico Hischier is doing the TikTok backflip. I don't know. I don't have a TikTok. I don't really get it, but listen, it's given us something to talk to on the podcast tonight in the middle of a global pandemic, so I guess it can't be all bad, right?
Yeah, it can't be all bad. As a matter of fact, Nick, hey, you know what? Maybe I should take my fat ass out and start doing that on TikTok. But, I may be, 3 months out of commission doing podcasts, so I don't want to disappoint our fans.
Sam, if you did a backflip, I would watch that 1,000 times.
No, you'll probably see me like roll and tumble, down a hill. I'd rather just do that instead. I think it's a little safer.
Yeah, probably. But Kyle, one last thing. I just want to kind of build on your expertise a little bit. So what do you think of this Devils team from like a 30,000 foot view? Like, is this team far, far, far away, or do you think with a couple savvy moves in the offseason maybe can become competitive again?
Unfortunately, I think we're looking at 2 years. I mean, you can't win without a bona fide coach with this team. Nothing against Alain Vigneault, and there's nothing against John Hines, but when you bring in a guy like Jack Hughes, you have Nico Hischier, and we're just talking about all these prospects. You need a guy like Joe Quenneville. You need a guy like Peter Laviolette. You need a guy like Gerard Gallant. I mean, you just look back in history, and that's just how it goes. Like, we can just go down the line and look at all these former draft picks, and all of them had a coach like that. It's just reality. So until that happens, I'm going to say they're far away. And I haven't seen that. They need more scoring depth, regardless, because I don't know if Jack Hughes a goal scorer like Austin Matthews. I don't know. Nico Hischier really a goal scorer? I think he's more of a setup man, right? As good as he is. Kyle Palmieri, we're probably going to re-sign, but he can't do it all himself, and he's going to be on the other side of 30. So I'm thinking 2 years is realistic. To be a playoff contender, that is.
Well, I mean, next season's probably going to be weird anyway. It's probably, if they get this playoffs in the summer, I guess next season is going to be postponed. And I was talking to Sam, and I was like, if next season's postponed, like imagine having to wait till November to watch competitive Devils hockey and maybe any Devils hockey at all. So I don't want to make anybody sad. We're not here to be sad. We're here to be happy. But Kyle, I really want to thank you for coming on. You got any pieces coming up? Anything to plug that's coming up on Elite Sports New York?
I think just probably some similar stuff is just, looking back on certain players' careers, some fun stuff with social media. I might dive into some more historic things between the Devils and the Rangers. I will say on a positive note, though, there was one player that really stood out this season to me. I think it was Mackenzie Blackwood. That's got to give a lot of Devils fans hope. I think a team always has hope when you have a good goaltender and one that's only going to get better. So if you are listening, you are a Devils fan, don't take to heart too hard, I guess you could say, what I say about 2 years, because I think when you do have a guy like Mackenzie Blackwood, it's definitely reassuring. So.
Yeah, I think that kind of changes the timeline a little bit, is having the goalie. The goalie changed the timeline for the negative this season, and I feel like it could change the timeline for the positive going forward.
Sure, yeah, I didn't mean to be ignorant towards that either. I almost kind of forgot, I guess. I couldn't even tell. Last time the Devils played, it feels like 4 months ago. I think it was only wasn't even a month ago. So,
yeah.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it, and happy for what you guys are doing, and stay safe, and I'll be tuning in again. So, thanks, guys.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Stay safe. That is Kyle McKenna, hockey writer, Eat Sports New York. He does a lot of publications, by the way. And sorry, I'm just a little discombobulated. I left this on my iPad, and it's just been on repeat the entire time, like backflip. So it's like kind of like distracting me, because I just want to, I'm thinking like he's going to actually like do something bad and get hurt or something like that. But he's just doing all these backflips. So I'll just put on the video feed right now. It's just anyway.
It's great to have Kyle back on. Yeah, blast from the past. It's just funny. I didn't even know that he was an old school guest. We never communicated that, so that was interesting.
Kyle was probably our guinea pig guest when we started taking guests over the phone line, believe it or not. And I told him, I hope this works. I think I did. I think he was the one. I'm like, I hope this works. And, we're trying, because, the Let's Go Devils podcast, it all started with the Mickey Mouse costume and, just little Facebook Lives on your iPhone. And now it's become big, and we are, starving for content, and that's what we do, Nick. That's what we do. So, so I'm going to get our next guest on to play the game, so I'm just going to flip it over to you.
Oh, that was quite the transition, Sam. We just went right to it. Today's game is going to be interesting. I hope it's going to be fun. No.
Do you need help? Okay. I'm gonna need someone's number. Anyway,
I sent it to you.
Oh, did you? Okay, I didn't look at my phone. All right,
yeah, you should be good.
All right.
Goodbye. Anyway, now I'm thrown off. But Daniel in the chat says that the Devils need a good backup goalie, and I think that's priority number one. Before defense, before top six forwards, before fixing the bottom six. The Devils have a lot of issues. They need to fill a lot of things. But there's actually a pretty good free agency class to fill needs this year. I feel like it's devout of top end talent. Only really having Pietrangelo, Toy Krug. I guess it's a good free agency class this year. And with the lowered salary cap, that can set the Devils up in a good way. So I think that they're going to be in really good shape this year. Just with the assets they have and the cap space they have. And I feel like that the Devils are going to be a team that could win the offseason again. But look at how they won the offseason last year. The only time they spent assets is they spent a number one overall pick on Jack Hughes. And I think everybody's doing that again. I think we're all admitting that that's going to happen again. They spent a second and a third round pick on Nikita Gusev, and everybody's definitely doing that again. The questionable move was the PK Subban trade, but it was a second round pick. It was a second round pick this year, and it was Jeremy Davies and Steve Santini, both of which I don't think played any NHL games, maybe a couple here and there. I didn't follow terribly closely to what the Nashville Predators did, but I just think that that backup goalie is so important, and I hate that they have to buy out Corey Schneider. There might be a compliance buyout after the COVID-19 situation, because the salary cap's probably it could even go down. I don't know what the possibility of that is. I have to look more into it before I say things on podcasts. But the salary cap could at least stay stagnant, which was going to hurt a lot of teams. I mean, cap friendly, if you look at it right now, the number's not right, because it's got an $84 million. I don't think it's coming anywhere near that. I think it's going to be closer to 81, 82.
Yeah. Can you hear me, Nick?
I can hear you, but all you said was
okay.
yeah. So I didn't know how to respond to that. I thought there was more.
Oh, well, I thought that I was waiting for the cue. Like, hey, Sam, who's our next guest? Who's going to get his butt kicked in? Oh, well, I got Steve Palumbo on the Nova Product Design Hotline.
So,
or is that a bad transition?
Steve, how you doing? No, I mean we're here, so you got
to. Can't hear you guys.
So, can you hear me now?
You can't hear us,
Sam. I don't think you can hear us.
You can't hear us? Okay. Well, I screwed that one up. That's kind of weird, because we can hear him. Something wrong with his phone. See, that's what I do with the other guy. I just blame him. Just blame him. But let's try this again. Let me try to Steve, if you're on the line, I'm going to dial back, and we'll try it again. Nick, why don't you talk to our audience again?
Fixing things live on the podcast. It's a pastime that we will probably never stop doing, because it's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But going back to what I was saying, I think that the Devils are poised to make a splash for free agency. I think they're going to poised to make a splash in the trade market. And if you add two assets that way, and then you get, say, a Nolan Foote to jump into the lineup, a Yanni Kuokkanen to jump in the lineup, Joey Anderson's going to stick around and be in the lineup. If McLeod can just do something, I need him to make the jump. Mikey, I just need you just to make the jump. That's what I need from Mikey McLeod, is just make the jump. You don't have to be a top six forward. You could be a bottom six forward, but just be the NHL forward that I know. We've seen you do it. So, I think if you add those three or four prospects into the lineup playing really well, another young, really fast, smart team, and you add some veteran presences around them, I think that'll be good. Sam, are we good?
Yep, we got Steve on the Nova Product Design Hotline. Steve, can you hear us now?
Now I can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Yeah, it was probably somebody gaming next door, and our internet dropped or something. I have no idea.
Anyway, tonight's going to be a really interesting game. It's something we've never done before on the Let's Go Devils podcast. So last time, obviously, I had Steve on. I screwed the game up pretty royally, and I answered one of the questions wrong. And I think it gave Sam a win that he probably didn't deserve. So that's my bad. But tonight, I can't do that, because tonight you're asking me the questions, because we're playing the dating game.
What?
So, how this is going to work. I have 6 current New Jersey Devils players, and I'm going to answer your questions how I think they would answer your questions. You can ask me anything. I haven't screened you guys. You guys had no idea this was coming, so this is going to be off the top of your heads. Then I'm going to allow you to ask me 3 questions for each player, and how I answer them, you got to tell me who you think that player is. And then if you get it wrong, the other game player gets to have that player, and at the end of the game, whoever has the better players will win the game. Something like that. I don't know.
It sounds complex. Steve, go first.
It sounds very complex. So I'm supposed to ask you a question?
Yes. Steve, you're going to ask me questions. And
Okay.
you could ask me anything. You could ask me about how I did on the ice, or you can ask me about personal questions, and I'm going to act as if I am the player conducting a press conference or speaking to you as a journalist of some kind. That's how I'm going to go about this. It is a brand new thing that I am trying live on the podcast because it is quarantine time and we're just doing it. Sound like a plan?
All right, let's do it.
All right. So I am ready
I guess I'm
for question number 1.
Okay. So how was it that you lost your teeth?
Well, back when I used to play for the U.S. national team, I took a shot from Cole and I didn't see where it was going, but I was just moving so much faster than everybody else, and I came to the NHL and I really appreciated all the opportunities I had, despite me not having any teeth. So I will probably, once I eventually make more money, probably get those new teeth, but for now, I'm just gonna have to hold this one over Cole's hat for a little bit.
Do you want me to guess, or do you want me to ask more questions?
It's up to you. If you know it, you can guess.
Jack Hughes.
That is indeed Jack Hughes. Yes. So that's one for Steve. So Sam,
This game is still hard. All right.
Sam, I'm ready for you when you are.
What is it like to be a god in New Jersey?
Well, you see, it. I don't think I'm a god yet, but oh, don't do the no accent. That's not good. I don't think I'm a god yet, but I'm an up and comer, and I think that if I continue to do backflips the way that I do, if I could do one on the ice, I think that would make me a god. At least maybe not a Greek god, but another kind of god. So I play a 200-foot game, and I do backflips. So I mean, I'm getting there. I'm almost godlike.
I don't know why, but I'm going to ask another question because I really don't know who you're talking about. You may be a goalie. Are you like Swiss cheese?
I'm definitely not cheese, but I definitely like mountains in the Central European area, and I think that that's where I grew and fell in love with the game. So I do like goalies that are Swiss cheese, but I'm more focused on setting other people up to take advantage of the cheese. I'm actually probably more of an American guy myself, just because. I don't want to be a statistic.
And since this is a dating game, do you expect long-term relationships?
I'm privy to spending a lot of time in one place. I spent the first 18 years of my life in one place, and I'm going to spend the next 8 years of my life in one place. Hopefully, it's the next 20, and I think that I'm going to continue to to show that I am worth the commitment.
Okay. Huh. And one last question. I have this audio from MSG Networks of you playing. You were yelling at some Detroit Red Wings player. Is this your voice?
I don't know what to do with that.
Okay,
guess,
Nico Hischier.
Yeah.
I was just dragging it out because I knew I was going to get this one. I had to really get it.
All right, so Nico Hischier. All right, Steve, you're up.
Okay. All right. So I've always wanted to know, when you're all alone in a breakaway, why is it that you always do the same move when you get to the net?
I'll tell you what, Steve. When I get a breakaway, it's usually on the penalty kill, which I probably shouldn't be on, but they put me on it because there's not much better. But I do my best, and then I use my speed and my agility, and I think of the best workout that I had, and then I use that to get more speed, and then I run towards the goalie real fast, and then it's just, but I'm not much for the pizzazz. I'm more just to kind of hit him in the face with the shot. So I just pull my stick back and just rock it.
Okay. Who did you score your first NHL goal against?
Well, my first NHL goal was a doozy of a goal, and it actually came in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's crazy, right? But it was against those lowly Pittsburgh Penguins, and God, do I hate the Penguins. They just run around, and they act like they're going to fly, and then they don't fly, and then I don't understand, but I don't but I was trying to help my team just make it past the next round of the playoffs. And think about that, Steve. Think about getting into the playoffs and then having to score your first NHL goal and then doing it. And I did it. I did it against the Penguins.
Okay. I think I know, but here's one more question. Has anybody on the Devils played more games, currently on the Devils, played more games than you have on the Devils? As in, are you one of the leaders in games played on the Devils?
Oh, I'm definitely one of the leaders, but I think Travis probably got me by a couple. So I'd have to look at the actual stats, but Travis definitely one of the big veterans in the locker room. We had Andy Green for so long, and he's one of the big veterans. Undrafted guy, just showing you exactly what he could do. And I'd say I'm one of the leaders, definitely in games played. I'm also one of the leaders in the locker room in general. I think that I bring a lot of leadership, but Travis probably got me by a couple.
Well, since I thought it was Travis, I'm gonna have to go another direction here. I was hoping it was Miles Wood, but he hasn't played long enough to play in the playoffs against Pittsburgh. Who else on that team has been in the playoffs before? Who else has been in the playoffs? I'm completely drawing a blank on this one. Kyle Palmieri.
That is incorrect. Do you know, Sam?
I have no
we
idea.
Can move on.
I'm going to say Travis Zajac.
No, it's PK Subban.
Oh my God!
You didn't talk like him. Come on, Jersey.
I can't do the PK Subban. So I kind of had this weird twang in my voice. I don't know where it came from, but that's how that was. I can't do impressions, to be fair. So But
the
all right.
proper should have given it away, but I should have given it away. But all right, sorry about that.
All right. Oh, you're fine. So, Sam, you got a chance to take the lead here.
How tall are you?
I mean, I'm pretty tall.
You
I mean,
you have to Google to find out how tall you are. You must be tall.
I mean, how often do you measure yourself? Do you just go around just, wondering, hey, how tall is Sam Wu today? No, you had to be like, well, let me think. The last time I had a doctor's appointment, I saw the Devils team doctor, and for some reason they're still measuring me. I've been here for a couple of years now, but for my position, I'm not one of the tallest, but I'm tall.
Do you like to fight other NHL players?
So for my position, it's pretty hard to get into a fight. It's front page news when we get into fights. So I don't like to fight, but sometimes people come and they cross me, and then I just have to kind of like give them a nudge, and then usually people come and get my back. But I'm not known for fighting.
Do you have a charity?
I mean, every NHL player has a charity, but of course I have a charity. My charity is, I knew this because it's my charity, of course. I definitely have a charity, and it's definitely a really good charity that helps a lot of people.
Does it involve the military?
No, I don't have Kyle's charity. That's Kyle. You're thinking of Kyle. I'm not Kyle.
Okay.
I don't think you know it at all, do you?
No. But I'll guess so. Nikita Gusev.
No. My Russian's bad, but it's not that bad. Steve, who do you think it is?
Mackenzie Blackwood.
It's actually Corey Schneider.
I
don't think Mackenzie Blackwood's made enough money to have a charity yet. All right. Last round. You guys are tied. See who gets it. Steve, we'll start with you.
Okay. Let's try this. What's your favorite moment as a New Jersey Devil?
I mean, there's been millions of moments I've had with the Devils, but I mean, coming back and playing for the Stanley Cup has got to be the number one. But I got hurt one season, and then we came back. We made the playoffs after I came back, and and playing with Jaromir, that was a dream come true. One of the best players ever played in the game. There's too many moments to count. But number one, I mean, can you put a price on a Stanley Cup?
Definitely not. Are you often pushed into a top six role, even though your skill is more situated for the bottom six role?
I feel like you reporters always try to turn this around and rank us almost, and I don't know why you're doing that. The New Jersey Devils are not a team where we need to have a first, a second, and a third line. We definitely have a fourth line, but that's neither here nor there. But the coach puts me in the center of the ice, and he puts two people on the sides of me, and it is my job to make sure that those two are in the utmost position to succeed.
Great answer. And my last question to you is, what year were you drafted?
I was drafted a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, and I it was a dream come true to get drafted. And it was an awkward time because there was no hockey being played, but it was still a special moment for me, and it's something I'll cherish forever.
You threw me off with that one. Long time ago.
I could steal this one. Oh,
what'd you say, Steve?
Travis. Long
That's
time
Travis.
ago, Travis. That's me. Yeah.
He's the last of the Stanley Cup holdovers, so I figured that one was going to give it away.
It did, but then I started second guessing myself with your last answer for some reason, even though I was going Travis from the beginning. So that's why I was asking those questions. But
he got drafted near the lockout. That's why.
Yeah, he was drafted in 2004, so there was no hockey being played. So that was the whole. But anyway,
that's right. I was thinking 2003, but
all right. So, Sam, this is your chance to tie.
Who are you?
Well, I'm a hockey player for the New Jersey Devils. Who the hell are you?
What position do you play?
Here on the New Jersey Devils, we're not going to be put into the category of positions that's just going to take down our strategy and our ability to beat teams on a nightly basis. And if I put myself into a situation like that, and our coach says that, some nights I'm a winger, some nights I play a little bit more defense, and some nights I'm a healthy scratch.
Do you do TikTok?
I guess I'm old enough.
Are you fast on the ice?
Sam, I feel like you're throwing this game.
I don't even know who you're talking about. Miles Wood.
Those were terrible questions. It was just for Brett, but I don't even know how you would have gotten there. I don't know what happened. Whatever. Steve, you win the game.
I should be excited, but I feel a little ashamed.
And blew it for you. Go.
Oh boy.
Listen, there's something there. There's a concept of a game there. I know it. There are going to be some rough patches. I mean, most of these games, I make these up on the fly, guys. So some of these are going to have a couple of rough patches, but that was fun, right?
Yeah, it was tons of fun.
Definitely fun.
I didn't throw the game, though. I just had no idea.
I want to throw a disclaimer out there. Those were not me trying to do the accents of the players. This was just me throwing my voice because I can't do accents. So I wasn't going to try.
I just kind of when you first started with the Jack Hughes, you had a little twinge of Jack in there in the very beginning.
Yeah.
I was so too. I mean, you gotta just talk real quiet and like breathy. Like it's like talking like Justin Bieber, because I guess that's how just like everybody that age talks for some reason. So I'm just really happy and excited and let's go Devils.
Come on, Jack. Let's get up in Jersey, man.
No, it's got to be quieter, and you got to like ask everything like a question, but it's actually a statement. So you're like don't know what to do with the question marks and periods anymore because it just sounds like everything just meshing into one simple language. Anyway,
I think you have a career coming.
So Steve, why don't you tell me what you got? You had the Zellpukin piece that I pushed. You got anything else coming up for us?
Yeah, coming up along the same lines as the unsung heroes, I'm going to take a look at Grant Marshall would be the next one I'm looking at. Just kind of something to keep our minds occupied until hockey comes back. going back and looking at some of those guys that made contributions in the past to some of the Devils' success. So Grant Marshall's next.
Wonderful. We can't wait to read that one, Steve. I can't wait to read it. We're going to get that on pucksandpitchforks.com. Make sure you read Steve's stuff, my stuff, and, in about 2 years when Sam finally decides to write for us. But thanks so much for coming on, Steve. We're going to have you on again because we got to have the rubber match. You got to have best 2 out of 3.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Steve. Stay safe. That is Steve Palumbo, Pucks and Pitchforks blog, beating the Woo. He just outlasted me in that game. Unbelievable. So,
that was an interesting
game.
When I thought about it, I was like, that could go terribly wrong, but I don't think it was that bad.
Wasn't that bad. You like my questions?
I liked them up until the last one. I don't know what you were doing in the last one. You were trying to get me to cheat or something. I don't know.
I was trying to get you to backflip.
Listen, I saw that video and I thought about whether I can do it. And I was a little skinnier for wedding season. That was obviously like 6 months ago. Jesus. But I feel like back then I probably could have gotten close. But right now, no. Right now, I'm a concussion waiting to happen.
Yeah, me too. Well, we want to thank everybody for tuning in, watching us. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, around 12:05 a.m. Eastern. And
make sure go to the Twitter. Go to the Pucks and Pitchforks Twitter. Vote for your most hated Devils rival. Make sure you go vote. Devils, Pucks, and Pitchfork Puck at Twitter.com.
Till next time, let's go Devils.